Hello dear students, welcome in our English lesson. Today we're going to do cross-curricular reading that has to do with a specific subject. So, in our English lessons we learn different things about history as well, about arts, about biology, chemistry. Today we're going to focus on history. So we're going to see some very interesting facts together. So, before actually start reading, I would like from you to think of the American civil rights movement. Take a look at this person. Do you recognize him? Who is he? Take a look at these other pictures. What are these people trying to do? We're talking, of course, about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was one of those very important people that fought for the rights, fought of the civil rights of the black people. Martin Luther King has said, to ignore evil is to become accomplice to it, which means that when you see something that is not right, you should fight for it to change it. Differently, you become one with the evil, one with the bad thing. The time is always right to do what is right. So it's never late to try and change the things that you believe that are not right in this world. We can see people that protest. We can see people that fight for their human rights, ladies and men. And one of the very important quotes that you should always have them as a guidance in your life. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So whatever you do, whatever difficulty you might have in your life, you have to learn to keep moving. You have to learn that life has its difficulties, but we should make our best so that we can change these difficulties and try with all our efforts. So this is what we're going to read about, how these people try to change the world, try to fight for their human rights. Before the reading, we have got some vocabulary, and I want from you to try to put them in the appropriate places. So we've got racial discrimination. So when people try to discriminate, to say that some are white, some are black, so they don't have the same rights. Slaves, people that were not free in the past years. Slavery is the noun. African American, segregation, that means separation into different categories, and racism. So, during the 16th and 19th centuries, Africans were sold as they were not free. So they were sold as slaves in North America. In 1865, Abraham Lincoln ordered the end to slavery. So no more people were sold as slaves. They were free. In 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Billie Holiday and other famous black singers sang about the racism. So they sang about that so that they can change, so that racism did not exist anymore. In 1950s and 60s, the civil rights movement fought against, what did we say? Against segregation, so against this separation of the black and the white people. In 1964, Martin Luther King got the Nobel Peace Prize for his work against, of course, the racial discrimination. So there should be a discrimination anymore. There shouldn't be. And in 2008, Barack Obama became the first African American president of the United States of America. Let's go now and read about the civil rights movements. So what happened? How did these people fight? The African American civil rights movement took place in the USA between 1955 and 1968. But African Americans had fought for freedom and justice for many years before that. In 1865, Abraham Lincoln declared the end of slavery, so no more slaves, people were free. After this, African Americans became full citizens of the United States of America. And in 1870, men were given the right to vote for the first time. However, in the first half of the 20th century, racism against the black community was a huge social problem. Now we are given two sentences to decide whether they are right or wrong. So, true or false. African Americans started fighting for their rights in 1955. Go to the text, please. We said here that we have the civil rights movements, but they had fought for freedoms many years before. So for this reason, this sentence is false. Black American men were allowed to vote for the first time a few years after slavery ended. What did we read in the text? That after this, so after the end of slavery, the African Americans became full citizens and they could vote. For this reason, the sentence is true, of course. Now, we're going to continue with our reading comprehension. As you can see, in 1950s, racial segregation, so separating people because of their race, still existed. Black people couldn't attend the same schools as white people. Black and white people were separated on trains, buses, and in other areas such as restaurants and movie theaters. We have so many signs that show that. For example, we've got fountains for white people and for colored people, so they couldn't drink water in the same place. Or we have got places that can be accepted only by white people. Or we have these pictures that show that only the colored people could wait in this specific room, not the white. They couldn't be mixed together. So the question is, in the 1950s, it was impossible for black and white people to sit together in a restaurant. And of course, this is true. This is what we read, that these people couldn't be in the many places together. There were different places for white and different for the black people. So many people fought for their rights, so many black people. One of them was this girl, and her father, and her family, and her community. That is Linda Brown. In the early 1950s in Kansas, a young girl, Linda Brown, applied to a school near her house, but she wasn't accepted. Instead, she had to travel a long way to a black-only school. She became famous when her father fought against the local board of education. Finally, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to stop segregation in public schools. So, from that moment that they fought, the students, the people, the kids could go in the same school, whether they were black or whether they were white. Their victory helped all black children to get a better education. So our question, Linda Brown couldn't go to her neighborhood school because she wasn't white. And of course, that sentence is true. This is what she fought for, because her house was far away, the house that they sent her, because they couldn't let her to go to the school that was near her house because she was black. Apart from Linda Brown, one more lady fought for her rights, and that was Rosa Parks. This is Rosa Parks. Take a look at her, what she says. Sitting down to stand up. It has a meaning. Why sitting down? Because this lady, Rosa Parks, she sat on the bus and she refused to get up for a white man to sit. This is what she did, and for this reason they arrested her. But this started a whole fight against this discrimination. Let's go and read about it. In 1955, a 42-year-old black woman, Rosa Parks, sat near the front of a crowded bus in Alabama and refused to give up her seat to a white man. Police were called and Rosa was put in prison. Rosa's actions inspired the black community to support the civil rights movement. With Martin Luther King as their leader, they refused to use the public transport for more than a year. So they didn't use trains, they didn't use buses, so that they can show their dissatisfaction to the whole situation. Until segregation, so this separation on buses, was stopped. And our sentence, Rosa Parks was arrested for sitting next to a man on a bus. Was she sitting next to a man that she was arrested? Actually, no. She was arrested because she didn't get up. She didn't leave her seat. So for this reason, our sentence is false. And the last part of our reading, we have here Martin Luther King in one of his many speeches, with, of course, the most famous speech in which he said, "I have a dream," in which he wanted to see his kids being raised in a community with no more separations. Martin Luther King was one of the leaders of the civil rights movement. He said, "We are tired of being segregated and humiliated." He believed that all men and women, black and white, are equal members of the human race. Between 1955 and 1968, he traveled over 6 million miles and made more than 3,000 speeches. In August 1963, he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Over 250,000 people heard him. So, our question: Martin Luther King made over 3,000 speeches in the 13-year period before his death. Is this true or false? This is, of course, true, because we read in the text that between the period of 1955 and 1968, he gave more than 3,000 speeches. All right. That was our cross-curricular reading for today. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and you learned something that probably maybe you hadn't heard of, or something that will inspire you for your life from now and on. I would like to thank you for paying attention, and I wish you all the best. Goodbye.